I'm going to take you now to a place that cameras have never been before.
Christiane Amanpour has been a familiar face for as far as I can remember. You see her, and she's there, and she's putting her life on the line to bring us the information that she feels is essential.
What was that?
Bomb.
She has this desire to be in the middle of it and is drawn to the chaos.
The fight against mines is being waged.
And you can't do that without having a lot of courage. And with the consistent travel companion of potential, well, death. You see a lot that isn't right. And by that I mean that there is an imbalance of things. And it's very difficult to not want to put your hands on it and fix it. That is one of the reasons why I was so interested in spending time with Christiane, because her job is specifically to go to these places where there is injustice or imbalance and see what needs to be done.
How many of you are frightened of malaria?
And show the world the state of events so that people will invest
From the border
and be moved to try to make it right.
catching me not in my normal environment. I'm usually out in the wild and the wilderness. From the Border Institute, correct, right? Very eloquent. So when is President Clinton arriving?
9:50.
Okay.
9:50, quick makeup.
And Queen Rania and Bono?
9:30 is when we've targeted
Our host today, the moderator of the program, is a woman who has seen firsthand the impact of poverty, bad governance, climate change, and religious conflict in the world.
I think I thought when I first started that this was going to be fun, that this was going to be cool, that it was going to be an adventure, that, you know, I could see the world on somebody else's dime, I could, you know, meet important, interesting people. And it took a few years before I understood the full complexity and, frankly, the responsibility that's on my shoulders as somebody who works for a powerful media organization like CNN.
She recognizes the importance of her job as a journalist in terms of the power that her work has to potentially change the lives of people for the better. And she's done it.
We're having this conference trying to get people to do very specific things that we know will work.
Seeing women become more active in their societies, have more of a say in their household.
Extreme poverty is what we think in a generation we can really seriously make a dent on.
Where are the moderates? Where are the people? The way we describe, you know, a certain event or issue, more often than not, determines how it's viewed, how people react, how governments react. And it's a huge responsibility. It's not something that I take lightly. It's not something that I'm particularly proud of. I don't go out, you know, thinking that what I'm going to say or do is designed to affect a response. But I know that in our media age, it does.
college to study journalism, and I thought for sure that that was the course my life would take.
Renée, swim!
God bless y'all, thank you! I figured acting or theater was part of my adolescent career, and that it would stop there. I had no intentions of doing this. I'm not comfortable in front of a camera in public. I'm not comfortable having my picture taken. I'm not comfortable as a public figure, I'll just put it that way. So it's just an unlikely course to have your life take considering those qualities. I love the capacity that film has to teach. It's a very powerful medium. It forces you to take a look inside sometimes, and when you leave the theater, occasionally you're changed. And I feel privileged to sometimes be part of something that has even a tiny bit of that. I love the challenges that come with every new film that comes along. I leave a changed person every time I leave a film behind. I'm constantly learning things, if not by literal research, by what I see, by being transplanted into a different culture and experiencing that culture from the inside. Traveled a little bit when I was growing up. My parents were discovering America as immigrants, so essentially, you know, we were all discovering it together as my brother and I grew up. My mother is Norwegian and my father is Swiss. So from a very early age, we knew that the world was a pretty big place.
Up in Iran. My father is a Muslim, Iranian. My mother is an English Catholic. And so I grew up in a very multicultural, multi-ethnic, tolerant household. I grew up never thinking that one was better than the other, that one religion was superior, that one ethnic group was superior. And it's really stood me in good stead. And I like to say that, you know, I was about 20 years old before my brain kicked in, my consciousness kicked in. And that happened because we had a revolution in my country. In 1978, the Islamic Republic of Iran was being created. The Shah was overthrown in early '79, and my whole existence was turned upside down. My whole sort of worldview was shattered. My whole security blanket was torn off me, and everything that I thought was right was now wrong. All my father's friends, my family friends who I'd grown up thinking were heroes were now the devil. Some of them were executed, some of them fled. My own uncle was imprisoned and later killed in prison. You know, these things shape you. These things affect the way you then turn into an adult.
So interesting that she discusses coming from a life of privilege and wealth and comfort and, you know, and then it's just gone.
But after the revolution, things became very clear. You know, I could no longer rely on my parents, my father. I could no longer rely on this, you know, fabulous life that I had. And I needed to do something with myself. And I think journalism came to me because I was old enough when the revolution happened to understand it and to find it interesting, even though it was so traumatic for me and for many of my friends. And I found it fascinating. And I wanted, I thought, to be part of those kind of world events as a spectator, not as somebody who was directly involved anymore. And so I thought I'd do journalism, and that's what I did.
curious about what made her interested in journalism. I wanted to know what makes a person realize that that's her calling.
So listen, I'm really kind of urgently wanting to pursue this because you heard what they said overnight in Beijing, right? So I am desperate to get the first interview with Kim Jong-il, which is a little, you know, pie in the sky, but if I do, I'll retire.
Christiane, Amanpour. How are you?
How are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Oh,
We're
this is going to be
chat
fun.
for the day.
Yeah, this will be a good day.
Yeah.
When did yours start?
6, but it's okay. I'm a bit jet lagged, so it's all right. I'm on England time, so actually it's, what time is it now? It's late.
Okay,
I'm
so
good.
we'll be on par.
Yeah.
We'll be on par. I haven't changed the time on my BlackBerry yet from Tokyo, so good. This will be an interesting
You're
day.
really discombobulated. Are you still on Tokyo
No,
time?
honestly, I do this temporarily. I don't do this weekly. My dad used to call it Chicken Noodle Network.
Yeah, Chicken Noodle Network.
The Chicken Noodle Network.
Everybody called us that at the beginning. Nobody believed that Ted Turner's experiment was going to succeed. Nobody. The notion of 24-hour news, 24-hour-a-day cable, then global cable, satellite television, it changed our world. It changed our world.
Overnight, the UN recorded some of the worst heavy weapons fire around Sarajevo. Despite reinforced UN patrols, snipers are still picking off civilians. The group emerged 18 months ago, vowing to bring order to the chaos of Afghanistan.
I didn't really realize that it would be so on the edge of human endurance. I didn't really realize that my professional life and therefore my personal life would follow that path. I came to America with a goal, with a focus, with a dream. I just knew I wanted to get there, get the qualifications, and get my first job. My friends told me about this new channel, CNN, that was just starting. And I was interviewed on the telephone, and they asked me about 10 questions. One of them was, what's the capital of Iran? Well, since that was my home country, I was able to answer that. The recruiting man at CNN said to me, oh my goodness, you're foreign. We've got a vacancy on the foreign desk. You can take that position. So I was thrilled to bits. I mean, I started right at the bottom, typing in our correspondence scripts and, you know, watching what I wanted to do, but watching it from afar. And then gradually, through a war of attrition, I got to get a correspondence job in New York. I was the weekend correspondent, which frankly nobody else wanted, and field producer during the day. And then 3 years later, so this was in 1990, the Gulf War happened and I never looked back.
Something is happening outside.
It's so unbelievable to think that we were all part of really the media revolution. And everything that's come since has been a copy of us.
Do anything, I'll talk to security. Go back there. All right, they're coming out in handcuffs right now. That means, so we're going to wait about 5 to 10.
Now, this is what I went to school for.
Yeah, this is a cool setup, I tell you. So this is our newsroom. Over there's sort of like a mini set. But this building is so far and away state of the art of anything that I've seen. It's really so good. It's like 24 floors or 50 floors or maybe even more. Some of our offices around the world, you know, we churn out so much in tiny, cramped offices.
I'm looking at this wall and I'm thinking, there it is, there's my addiction.
I just get so passionate about news and information.
I would ask you the same question.
No, but it's my business. You know what I mean? You're just so into it and so interested.
It's one of the great privileges of the work that I do, is that I get sent to the most unlikely places, and if I'm lucky, there's a television, as far away as, Romania, for example. I learned so much, but I didn't understand why I was seeing more detailed information from, say, a German news source about what's happening in San Francisco, California, than my friend who lives in Los Angeles.
That's our big challenge right now in the American media. It's our big challenge to reclaim our profession.
It's a trend, I think, that has changed so dramatically in the last 15 years. Not only in terms of how the media in general, not just official media, but, print media, how it reflects what it is that we value in society by sort of offering what it is that we have an appetite for.
The thing that bothers me about journalism in America right now is the devaluation of serious and especially international
news. Can I just tell you?
Yeah, so I always trying to work to do that. And we do on CNN.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I think as a society we have to be careful not to devalue serious journalism beyond the point of recognition, because it's a bastion of the democracy and the civil society in which we live. What do you think? I mean, you obviously have your own strong views, not just about the world, but about wanting to get information. But we're told that ratings go up when more sensationalist, more sort of celebrity stuff goes on the air.
I think there's a lot of things that play into that. I mean, it's difficult enough as it is to get through your day. I mean, that plays a big part of it. And most people don't have the luxury to actually pay attention and really listen. So I understand that.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, what I can't understand is when the information is provided and is available, why it takes a back seat to, say, American Idol. I don't understand the apathy.
The thing is, I'm always impressed when we see the opposite of apathy. For instance, after the tsunami, the American people, like people all over the world, they emptied their pockets, they really got interested. We did round-the-clock coverage. We devoted the whole network to coverage about it, and it really made a difference. More than 1,200 people were killed when the tsunami flipped this train as if it was just a tin can.
When she puts her life on the line to make sure that she's covered the truth and is exposing everything that needs to be shown in order to fairly represent people's experiences around the world. What drives her to do it, and how do you do it?
I often liken the kind of emergency journalism that I do to being a doctor, because you really are going out there, I think, not only trying to do good and trying to be responsible and trying to make a difference in the world in which you inhabit, but we can't deny our humanity. We can't be cold. We can't be inhuman and just breeze by. No, that's not what I do. I take it all in. I absorb it all. But while I'm working, I have to be tough. He turned 7 as they buried his mother and sisters. He refused to believe they were dead until his father showed him their graves. The 2 sisters buried in one coffin because there are too few of them for so many dead. A lot of our bosses, the mantra is, people are too stupid to understand this, that, or the other. All they want is, sensationalism and tabloidism. And I always used to fight against that. I said, no, it's not true. We're talking about, the powerful, richest country in the world, and the people are smart. And as I say, if you give them a good, compelling story, they'll listen. But I'm wondering whether I may have been kidding myself.
No, I don't think so at all. I think when multimedia corporations are owned by one private interest, they own the outlets. Don't they therefore control the programming? And yes, I understand that to some degree it's molded by the appetite of the people and the demographic that they're trying to appeal to. But does that make you, as a reporter, limited in any way in terms of what it is that you feel safe to do stories about?
If you ask me personally, I have never even entered the realm of what's politically correct or safe or not. I mean, I just report what I see, what's happening, and I do everything I can not to be a affected or bullied or whatever, or encouraged into one side or another.
Right.
And
it would compromise your ability to be effective as a journalist anyway, because you would be associated with having, an emotional tie to a particular outcome.
Yeah. The golden rule of our profession, what you always learn when you go to university, or you learn about journalism, is objectivity. And what does that mean? Well, it means, trying to get all sides of the argument. But I learned in Bosnia, for instance, which I consider the most important work that I've done, that objectivity sometimes needs to be refined according to the situation you are in. And in a situation such as a genocide that is being perpetrated, which we witnessed in Bosnia, which we then witnessed in Rwanda, you can't afford to be neutral if you think that objectivity means neutral. You have to tell the truth, and the truth isn't always even-handed.
The UN says what's happening here is a systematic campaign of intimidation.
Mr. President, it's a privilege to address you from Sarajevo. As leader of the free world, as leader of the only superpower, why has it taken you, the United States, so long to articulate a policy on Bosnia?
If you're not prepared to simply talk the truth in situations such as genocide or the extremes of human behavior, then you're drawing a false moral equivalence. You're not telling the truth. You're not being true to the reality of what's going on. And furthermore, you're complicit. In my view, if I had said in Bosnia that the civilians who were being sniped to death, who were being mortared to death, who were being besieged into starvation, that they were equal to the aggressors who were on the hills raining down those bombs and shells and sniper bullets, then I would have been complicit in that genocide, and I wasn't prepared to do that.
Genocide is an ugly, ugly thing. To look at it is horrifying. To accept that it recurs in our history again and again, in our lifetimes again and again, is more horrifying. But to have to make the commitment to look at it, acknowledge it, define it as genocide, means to be committed to do something about it. And she made people look at it and say, yeah, that's what's happening here.
For miles, the scenery reflects the hatred that has grown out of this war, hatred that no new political map will ease, but rather could sow the seeds of a future war. Christiane, Amanpour, CNN, near Brčko in northern Bosnia.
Do we have, Chris, we don't have the Sunday New York Times here, do we still? There's a great quote in the review section in a famous speech that Murrow gave at the Radio Television News Directors Association. This instrument can teach, it can illuminate, and yes, it can even inspire. But it can do so only to the extent that humans are determined to use it to those ends. Otherwise, it is merely wires and lights in a box. And every time I see our television screens, and every time I think about what we're doing, I always think about those words, because that's the mantra. That's what I believe. That's what all my like-minded colleagues believe. I mean, we believe in the power of this medium,
yes,
but only if we're determined to wield it responsibly and to understand the power and what it's there for.
Responsibly, yeah. I agree.
And if we mess with journalism, and if we mess with the truth, and if we mess with, this profession, then that's dangerous for our whole society. We have to be able to have an independent journalistic profession. We have to be able to report without fear nor favor.
Never in any century have so many men, women, and children been killed so quickly as in Rwanda in Africa.
It looks like they died in violent and painful circumstances. Oh my God. This one still has a rosary around its neck. Yeah. In Rwanda,
oh boy,
we failed.
Yeah, that's
we
painful.
really failed. I think the journalists failed by not putting as much attention as we could have done on it, and there were all sorts of reasons for that. There was the OJ going on in the United States during part of that time, but also there was a good news story going on in South Africa
Africa,
Yes.
Nelson Mandela was being elected president.
Right.
There was Bosnia still happening. In other words, we took our eye off the ball. Us taking our eye off the ball allowed the governments to take their eye off the ball. My view is they could have intervened with very little pain and they could have just stopped it. And they didn't. And the result is, and to this day, it makes me, really uncomfortable, really ashamed, really deeply ashamed that because of collective inaction, nearly 1 million people were slaughtered to death in 1994 in our television global media age. And it's a very heavy, heavy responsibility to bear. And I don't think people actually ever think about that. I don't. I think that when we're messing around with news and we put on rubbish and sensation, I don't think anybody thinks about what is the consequence if we don't do our job right.
I just find it fascinating that you're discussing Rwanda as a personal failure. I mean, you carry a massive emotional burden about that, about having feelings that you have personally failed. I mean, I remember reading in the paper that a particular tribe stormed into a village in the middle of the night with machetes and murdered women and children in their sleep. And I remember thinking,
why? How?
And where's the rest? And the same with Bin Laden. And I remember the first time that I heard about who he was, I read a blip in the paper that said there's this person and the government has had, its eye on him for quite some time. And he was quoted as saying, soon something is going to happen in America that is going to be of such magnitude it will never be forgotten and the world will never be the same. And there was no elaboration, nothing expanded on that. And I remember looking around thinking, what happened to the guy with the world's never going to be the same promise? What happened to him?
September 11th happened.
Two of the most recognizable buildings in the city of New York have been attacked, and both of them appear to have collapsed.
The whole society was traumatized, including the press. I think, with very few exceptions, the press then became part of this society that had been traumatized.
No one knows precisely where this is going.
There seemed to be a tempering of the aggression that you usually find in terms of determination to acquire information through asking really difficult questions. And it seems to have begun out of respect for the mourning period that followed 9/11.
We lived in a few years of what I called intimidation.
Yes.
That we were intimidated by the magnitude of what had happened.
Yes.
By the unprecedented nature of the attack on this country.
There was this unspoken kind of taboo about practicing dissent through journalism as a journalist, and that's what they're supposed to do. That's where we get our truth and our history. We look to the media, the journalists who go and get their hands dirty.
I think it's taken a few years, but we're back.
How long do you usually stay in a place when you
Depends. It really depends. After 9/11, I was about 3 months on the road, and it was hard. During the Iraq War, a whole month without going home. So it can be tough.
No, I can imagine. Well, especially with that threat.
For me, it's shocking that the leading cause of death amongst journalists around the world is assassination. It's shocking.
Well, and it must have compounded when you had your child.
It did. I mean, it just became a real consideration. I wasn't afraid really before. At least I didn't think about fear as much or the consequences of what I did. I was so kind of blithe before my son was born, and I was, pregnant.
pregnant, and people say, well, you're going to continue doing what you're doing. And of course, you know, of course.
Yeah.
You know, I'll get a Kevlar baby grow, or, you know, that kind of stupid thing. Exactly. And do you know that the leading cause of death amongst journalism is deliberate, it's murder. People are out to get us. People don't want to hear what we're saying. People don't want us in their backyard. People don't want us to shine the spotlight on the violations of human rights or the illegalities or criminalities or just plain evil and abuse that they're perpetrating. They do not want to hear it, and they don't want us in real time with satellite television telling that story to the world.
Great, my love. I love you, my little boy. I'm telling Renée, my friend Renée. Do you know what? She plays in films. She's really good. One day I'll show you a film that she's done, okay? She makes movies, that's right. That's exactly right. He is so clever. Listen, Mummy loves you, loves you, loves you. You go to sleep now, okay? Because it's getting late. It's 8:30. Why are you still in your clothes? Haven't you had your bath?
Coming home is the biggest joy, especially when you have a great family to come home to. I have a fantastic husband, the most amazing child that you've ever seen in your whole life, the most brilliant, handsome, you know, all of that. And coming home is, you know, for me, a liberation. It's a complete, you know, confrontation with all the joy of the world and all the happiness that life has to offer, because in my work, I am constantly confronted by the sadness, the evil, the death, the tragedy.
When did this building, was it damaged by 9/11 completely?
This was the third tower that came down at 5:30 in the afternoon.
And it was a full tower, and it just collapsed.
Larry Silverstein built this building in the 80s, and it was his lifelong dream as a real estate developer, to own the Twin Towers. And he finally signed a lease for 99 years in June 2001. 6 weeks later, they came down. 74 was devoted the rest of his life to rebuilding the entire site. So we're going to go in. I'm going to take you guys up to the 20th floor. We're going to walk around, because the views of the city are extraordinary.
Wow.
And there hasn't been views like that since before 9/11. Two gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, ladies. This is Mike.
I'm Christiane. Amanpour.
Nice to meet you.
Renée Zellweger.
So I was 18 when I first came to the United States, and the first place my host took me was to the very top of the World Trade Center.
This is our media clips book. That's the part that'll be in front of the building.
Which we just passed here. Dara said a lot of these guys who are involved in the building now were involved in the cleanup after everything collapsed.
Yeah.
Somebody who's a bit nervous of elevators, this is fine?
Yeah.
It's your regular.
She goes to like war-torn countries and she's scared of an elevator.
I like to be outside.
Normally you take the outside hoist at the side of the building, so...
Well, come on.
And
She'd probably feel more comfortable with that if she was...
See, it's already buzzing.
She'd feel better if she was rappelling from a rope.
I rappelled once. I was talked into rappelling down the atrium of the Holiday Inn in Sarajevo.
How'd you do?
I didn't do great. I knocked into these lamps that were like lamps in the atrium. Then I got my hair caught.
Oh, no,
Can you imagine?
Oh,
you had to hoist me back to the top, otherwise my whole scalp would have come off. Yeah.
To what? To the? Would you get caught on
between the ropes? Yeah.
Oh, Christiane.
No, pathetic.
Now, how many people can tell that story?
There's no way I'm going to the side. I can't even go to the window.
Really? Oh, I'm not that bad.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, I'll let Renée do the window visuals for us.
We're actually not going to build.
I can feel my head spinning and my legs are a bit wobbly. Yeah, I feel silly because, I've been a lot of places in the world, but as we were walking by, I kept wanting to hold on to something. But honestly, I can't imagine having been in these buildings when that happened. The sheer, utter terror and the panic and the darkness and the smoke. Oh my God.
Yeah, the choices that you have to make. Your options, and all of them, your last option.
Yeah.
And you choose from those.
And it is incredible, really, when you're up this high, to realize what some of these rescuers did. Running up these stairs through the... Oh, my goodness, just incredible.
When is the first time you came here?
About 2 months after 9/11, I'd been covering what was going on in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Then I had to come to New York, and I wanted to come down here. And it was still, it was still a smoldering wreck back then. And it was still really a recovery process, and it was, it was still very raw. And it's actually good to come back and see this building up and to see them on the verge of, hopefully, rebuilding this whole downtown area. I think that's really important because they need to have a real memorial, but they also need to get it back to life, I think, this place. This is the shadow of what we've been working and toiling in for the last 4 years. But this is real New York, isn't it? And it's really rebuilding. It's really amazing.
I like that you do that.
What?
Whatever situation it is. And you've seen some crap.
Yeah.
Your mind goes forward.
They haven't yet beaten it out of me. Wow, look at this.
I can't even...
It's very rare to be here, isn't it? There's nobody else here. We're all alone.
Right here, you see the white border. You can see the print.
Yes.
Where the cones are right there.
Yes.
What does it say right there?
It's got a heart.
We something.
Oh, how sad. Whatever it is, somebody was lost there. We miss Daddy, I think is what it says. Too sad? I've learned that some of the most compelling stories are those that, have a degree of humanity, that you're trying to make people feel what you're seeing, what you know has happened. The skill of, I think, good storytelling in my business, which is not fiction, is trying to do it in not an overly sentimental, overwrought, melodramatic way, but nonetheless to try to capture the real drama and the real tragedy in many cases that you're reporting on.
So people can recognize.
I think so, yeah. And just identify more with it. Although, to be honest with you, this story could have unfolded without a single reporter word. Just the story itself is so compelling. Does that say we miss Daddy? And do you have any idea why that's been preserved? I mean, whose message is it?
On 9/11, the families gathered here, as they do every year, and the Port Authority puts a little square pool of water where they put flowers. So I'm guessing some of the kids made that out of stones while they're, moms.
Oh yes, that is out of stones. Do you know, I thought it was written in the in the wet concrete, but it's out of stones. I tell you, when you have your own child and you're witnessing these horrible, horrible tragedies, and when kids are involved, I mean, it is just about as much as I can do to, then it's hard to keep it together.
Is everyone pretty much cooperatively in agreement about about the design of the park in the middle?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's so respectfully designed. I think it's beautiful. When we went down to visit the construction site of the World Trade Center, it was about the progress that had been made and the miracle of the human will and determination and what can be achieved. It was positive, and it was about the future and moving forward. I enjoyed this a lot.
Me too.
She has to get Emmys.
I've got 20 minutes before I have to leave, don't I? I have to go at 4.
So why don't we walk back over that way?
Is that all right for you?
Absolutely. I understand this kind of day, and I want us to be fair to you and what you need to do tonight. You also need 5 minutes to collect yourself. You know?
Walk up this way.
It's exciting. It's a fun night. Yeah.
I hope what I do doesn't turn into just like a niche part of our profession, but I hope it comes back. Serious news continues and comes back.
Pardon me.
We won it! One of the things I think I'm proud about is that I've not become a dark, bleak, cynical, pessimistic person.
And it couldn't come.
She always looks forward, and it's always positive. I thought that was just so telling about who she is. It wouldn't stop with, yes, this is the state of affairs, and isn't it terrible? But she would say, this is the state of affairs, and it was not good, and yet I'm feeling the tide changing, and when I look there, I'm certain it will be better.